Jeff, you seem a bit nervous.
I am a little nervous, Ray. The place we're going has some downright dark legends surrounding it.
All right, we're driving down Route 207 into the small town of Highgate, Vermont. It's pretty rural around here, not too many houses.
Sure.
Just a town green and, wait a minute, that's one spooky-looking house over there on the left.
Ooh, you know what? That old Victorian mansion is actually our destination.
I get that it looks spooky, but just because it looks like that doesn't mean anything. Or does it?
Well, that's the old Highgate Manor Inn. Legendary mobster Al Capone once stayed here, but that's not the half of it. They say this was once the home to a doctor who performed strange experiments on his own children. And now, the place is haunted. Hi, I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger. Welcome to episode 211 of the New England Legends podcast. If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
Thank you so much for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England, one story at a time. We're a community of legend seekers sharing these tales of history and lore in our podcast, in the New England Legends television series that you can watch right now on Amazon Prime, and in our super secret Facebook group, now more than 5,000 members in that group and still growing fast. Now, we love it when you reach out to us anytime because so many of our story leads come from you.
Before we go looking for ghosts in this creepy old Highgate, Vermont house, we want to take a minute to thank our Patreon patrons.
Yes.
For years now, these legendary people have been helping us with our production costs, web hosting, promotion, and everything else that we do to keep growing. We appreciate them more than we can express.
Very much so.
It's just $3 per month if you can help us out. And you'll get early access to new episodes, plus bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear. Just head over to patreon.com/New England Legends to sign up.
This place has the look, doesn't it?
It sure does. I mean, it's a fancy Victorian-type building, 3 stories tall, with a large cupola on the top where it's glassed in. Kind of like a lookout.
Yeah.
The house is painted yellow with white trim. It's easy to imagine that this was the finest house in town at one time. And yeah, there's a bit of a creepy vibe here.
Yeah, there is. Now, this is the old Highgate Manor Inn. It's been shut down for a number of years now, but before it was an inn, it was a private home built in 1818 by Captain Steve Keyes. Now, the Keyes family lived here for many years, and eventually in the 1860s, the home was a stop for the Underground Railroad. But it's shortly after the Civil War that the legends begin.
All right, let's head back to autumn of 1870. It's September of 1870, and this charming house is now the home of Dr. Henry Baxter. Dr. Baxter converts part of his house into his medical practice inside the building he calls Highgate Manor.
Now, Dr. Baxter's made quite a name for himself, and quite a few dollars along the way, I might add. He's selling his medicines and elixirs. So, Ray, check out this newspaper ad from the St. Albans, Vermont Democrat newspaper.
All right, it says, have you got the sick headache? Take Dr. Henry Baxter's bitters. Have you got dyspepsia or a sour stomach? Take Dr. Henry Baxter's bitters.
Have you got a poor appetite? Take Dr. Henry Baxter's bitters. Are you weak and feeble from long sickness or other causes? Take Dr. Henry Baxter's bitters. Do you get tired early or inclined to be sleepy?
Take Dr. Henry Baxter's bitters.
Right, you get the point. Now, Dr. Henry Baxter manufactures Mandrake bitters and sells them in liquid and pill form for 25 cents per bottle. And business is good.
Now, the thing about Mandrake is, and I'm reading this, it contains deliriant, hallucinogenic, tropane alkaloids.
Say that 10 times fast.
I barely got it out once, Jeff.
So you're saying this drug could make you, I don't know, trip out.
Well, at least a little bit, but you'll feel better.
I bet you will. Now, besides being a medical doctor and proprietor of his own pharmaceutical company, Dr. Henry Baxter also owns a few other businesses in town.
All right, what else does he have his hands in?
He owns a drug and grocery store, a furniture store, and the H.W. Baxter and Company Undertakers.
Wait. The town doctor is also the Undertaker?
Yes, he is.
Okay, that's got to be a conflict of interest.
You'd think. Anyway, the guy is wealthy and owns the nicest house in town.
It's February of 1872 when Dr. Baxter decides to cash out of his medicine business. He sells his White's elixir, Baxter's worm lozenges, pain extractor, and fly paper to the Lord Brothers of Burlington for what the newspapers have called, quote, a handsome fortune.
Now, this is where things get weird. Sure, Dr. Baxter cashed out, but rumors fly that he's still experimenting with drugs and elixirs. Maybe to try and sell them for, another fortune.
Well, you can never have too much money, Jeff.
Totally true. Now, the rumors are that Dr. Baxter's experimenting with his drugs on his young children, which explains why they all die so young from inexplicable illnesses. Still, when you're that wealthy and influential, people don't ask too many questions.
Dr. Henry Baxter dies in 1898, and soon the manor is taken over by Philip Schmidt. By 1917, Schmidt converts the property into an upscale vacation resort. He begins to add to the property. Schmidt builds the manor annex and a new dance hall, billed as the largest and best dance hall in the North. And the reputation grows as people turn this small town and this large house into a destination.
During Prohibition, the basement of the manor house is converted into a speakeasy.
Well, people will always find a way to drink.
So true. Now, it's during this time period that notorious mobster Al Capone stays here. I mean, it's the best accommodations in town, the food is great, and he can connect with local rum runners. No doubt, Capone heard the tales of Hilda Stone while he's up here.
Of course, Hilda Stone, the bootlegger queen of Vermont.
Now, when Prohibition ends and we move into the 1940s, big bands like Benny Goodman and his orchestra perform here, as do other acts, each leaving a mark behind and building the legend of the manor house even bigger.
It's 1952 when tragedy strikes in the form of a fire. Some workers are burning some leaves a little too close to the building when one of the newer buildings catches fire and burns to the ground. By the 1960s, the manor house and inn slips into obscurity. It's still a regional favorite for many, enough to keep it in business, but it's not thriving like it once was. The bar and restaurant keep the place afloat.
And there's talk of the place being haunted. The basement bar is named after its most infamous patron, Al Capone, and it's down there that some of the staff report strange ghostly activity. There's a presence. Some believe maybe it's Capone swinging by for one more drink, but others go to a darker place, assuming it's the ghost of Dr. Henry Baxter's lost children. And that brings us back to today.
The Highgate Manor Inn kind of putters along through the 1980s and the 1990s, but struggles to keep up with the times. Plus, vacationers are flocking to other places in the region, feeling the call of the mountains or the lakes. By 2006, the owners can't keep up with the bills, and the house is sold at auction.
Now, there's one problem with the backstory of this haunting.
All right, what's that?
The story about Dr. Henry Baxter's multiple dead children. Now, we did some digging, and it turns out Henry and his wife, Adelia, only had one son, Frank Woodruff Baxter, who was born in 1843. He lived long enough to marry and have two children of his own, and then die the same year as his father in 1887.
Now, I still struggle with Dr. Baxter being the medical doctor, selling medicines, and owning the undertaker business.
Talk about full service, right?
Right? If you went to see him and you were sick and you heard the undertaker business was slow, you'd have concerns, right?
I would have concerns for sure. So by 2006, the owner of the Highgate Manor fell into legal trouble with the government, and the building was sold at auction.
Okay, but do you think it's haunted?
Highgate Manor's been around for more than 2 centuries. Multiple families lived here, add in the Underground Railroad, a doctor's office, and an inn, with countless people coming and going. I have no doubt that it's haunted. And when something bumps in the night, it's natural to want to define it, to give it a name, an identity. You hear a rumor, and suddenly, boom, that must be the ghost. But the truth is, we don't know much beyond the layers of history and lore that surround an otherwise spooky and abandoned old house.
Now, like we said earlier, the place has the look. You get a feeling here.
And I get the feeling we would love more of you to tell your friends about our podcast.
Yes.
Post and share your favorite episodes to your social media. Post a review for us on Apple Podcasts. It just takes a second, and it really helps others find us in a big sea filled with podcasts.
Well, speaking of a big sea of podcasts, lately we've been telling you about some of our favorite podcasts we like to listen to.
This week I want to tip my hat to a juggernaut of a podcast. It's The Way I Heard It by Mike Rowe.
Ah, wonderful.
Yeah, I love his storytelling, his personality, and the way he connects with his audience with just a laugh. This guy does everything so well. I guess we really shouldn't be surprised when his podcast is amazing too.
Well, it's a good one for sure. But we have something Mike Rowe does not.
Ooh, what's that?
Our theme music is by John Judd.
Right on. Hey, until next time, remember, the bizarre is closer than you think.